A romantic storyline involving the late Test began a few months after Stephanie McMahon made her WWE debut in 1999. They had even planned their wedding and were engaged on screen before the tragic disaster that befell the billion-dollar princess. After not receiving a chance to defend his WWE Championship in his native England, the British Bulldog rushed into Vince McMahon's suite at Rebellion to confront the former chairman and Shane, the chairman's son. Angry, he hurled a metal trash can across the room, and it smacked Stephanie McMahon, who was across the room, talking on the phone. The accident caused the billion-dollar princess to lose her memory, which caused her to have trouble remembering details about the wedding, so they had to postpone it. Still, Stephanie managed to regain her memories in the end. On Monday Night Raw from November 1, 1999, she made her proposal known to the former Intercontinental Champion when they were in the ring after his match against Val Venis. Stephanie McMahon and Test had been dating for a while, and on Monday Night Raw, November 29, 1999, they were supposed to tie the knot. Unfortunately, the wedding was interrupted by Triple H, who was then Vince McMahon's opponent and the father of the billion-dollar princess. Triple H revealed that Stephanie had already become his wife. He showed a film of a drive-through wedding in Las Vegas, where he and Stephanie were married while she was under the influence of drugs. Despite her initial demand that Triple H sign an annulment, the billion-dollar princess eventually turned on her father and allied herself with the game, launching the McMahon-Helmsley era in WWE. When you hear Stephanie McMahon's name, you think of WWE. Her father, Vince McMahon, was the driving force behind contemporary professional wrestling, and she has since taken on several positions in the industry, both behind and in front of the camera. She has acted as a formidable CO, a doting wife, and a vicious villain. Her off-screen marriage to WWE icon Triple H, Paul Levesque, is a legendary love story in the sport of wrestling. Imagine, however, if we told you that Stephanie McMahon once proposed to a former WWE champion, and no, it wasn't Triple H. Surprisingly, few WWE fans are aware that the tale took place during a crossroads in Stephanie's personal and professional life. Here, Stephanie's story takes an unexpected turn when she forms an emotional connection with a WWE superstar, and the two of them end up proposing to one another. In this story, we follow the reigning WWE champion as she reveals an unguarded aspect of herself to the public. Step back in time to when Stephanie McMahon was just starting out in WWE. Only then can we move on to the proposal. Although she was heavily engaged in the company's creative direction behind the scenes, the public had not yet seen her complete transition into the authoritative force she would become. She was born to wrestle, and becoming a member of WWE was second nature. However, she was dealing with the intricacies of personal and professional relationships, as any young woman in her 20s would. Before Stephanie married Triple H and became one of wrestling's most famous power couples, her heart belonged to a guy who held one of the most coveted titles in WWE. In order to grasp the seriousness of Stephanie's proposition, it is necessary to get acquainted with the other guy. He was a former WWE champion known for his charm, wrestling skills, and outsized personality. Both his success in the arena and his charismatic demeanor earned this gentleman recognition. Despite the secrecy surrounding their relationship, Stephanie and this guy were brought together by their shared love for WWE and the relentless demands of their careers. Their bond was one of the few instances of genuine emotion in a society where everything is staged and cheesy. Stephanie, who had spent her formative years immersed in WWE's high-pressure atmosphere, took solace in the former champion's modest demeanor. They had a connection outside of the squared circle, spent late nights coming up with narrative ideas, and had lengthy discussions about the company. Although they kept their romance under wraps, rumors circulated in the wrestling industry about the obvious spark between them. They were both aware that they were living in a cutthroat environment where their every move might be scrutinized by wrestling news sites or used to feed talk that would carry on for days. Stephanie and the former champion were both struggling to figure out what they wanted to do next in WWE and in life when the proposition arrived. Physical and mental exhaustion are inevitable in the wrestling industry. They were both overwhelmed by the demands of their positions, the fame, and the continual motion of their lives. However, they relied on one another throughout. The two were alone in a peaceful hotel room one fateful evening, far from the mayhem of WWE's business world, after a particularly taxing week of live performances. Their conversation had veered into the meaning of life, aspirations, and the emotional toll that wrestling took on them. Despite the high stakes of their professions, they managed to have an honest and open discussion. They shared their anxieties and discussed their hopes for the future. Stephanie, who had a reputation for being strong and resilient, was overcome by her emotions at this time of weakness. She had been the rock upon which the McMahon legacy rested for years, the one everyone turned to for guidance and direction, and the one who ultimately made business choices. However, the wealthy wrestling CEO Stephanie McMahon was not there in that room. Stephanie was just a lady who was in love. "I have never loved anybody more than I love you," Stephanie said, her voice betraying her deep-seated emotions. Weighty with significance, the words lingered in the atmosphere. There was no going back now that her intense emotions were out in the open. They had taken her by surprise. "Will you marry me?" Stephanie said, her words shocking even herself as she posed the question that would alter their lives irrevocably. The former WWE champion was taken aback by the request. The lady who had been born into wrestling royalty, Stephanie McMahon, was now formally requesting his hand in marriage. It seemed as if time had still for an instant. Even though he had always maintained his composure, the champion was left speechless. Not only would Stephanie's proposal alter their lives, but the WWE universe as a whole, as he understood all too well. There would be unrelenting examination of their connection as it would be put into the limelight. Public opinion was just one factor, however. The champion loved Stephanie very much, but he wasn't sure he was mature enough to settle down or whether he could manage the challenges of being married to someone with Stephanie's rich family history. Despite his admiration for Stephanie's resilience, intellect, and compassion, he was aware that being in her presence would subject him to an atmosphere of unending scrutiny and demand. The champion finally politely turned down the offer after what seemed like an age. Even though he loved Stephanie, he wasn't convinced marriage was the best choice for them right now, he informed Stephanie. He urged her to give it careful consideration, to weigh the implications for their futures together. Stephanie felt a crushing loss. Not the rejection itself, but the reality that even the strongest love can't always triumph over life's obstacles was the most painful part. Though she acknowledged the champion's choice, it did nothing to alleviate her suffering. A gradual breakdown of their relationship occurred in the weeks that followed. Although their once bright love relationship started to wane, they stayed close, bound by their shared history and profound regard for one another. Stephanie drowned her sorrows in WWE, devoting herself fully to her job. Whether the champion was there or not, she was resolute in her determination to triumph.